The gray headstone stood starkly in the morning light, its engraved letters softened by 8 summers and 8 cold winters in Arizona. Marcus Chen knelt before it, his knees protesting the descent, his 60-year-old joints reminding him that the body keeps a tally, even when the mind tries to forget. The wildflowers in his calloused hands seemed small and insufficient, their purple petals already wilting in the September heat. Daniel Marcus Chen, the stone read, beloved son. The numbers beneath told a story too brief, 1987 to 2003. 16 years of life, 13 years of haunting. He laid the flowers against the granite, his fingers slowly caressing the engraved letters of his son's name. The cemetery stretched empty around him, row after row of headstones marking the passage of lives lived and lost. Red Hill Memorial Gardens sat on the eastern edge of town, where the desert began its slow reclamation of everything human hands had tried to build. Saguaro cacti dotted the landscape beyond the fence, their spiny arms reaching toward the sky like penitents frozen in prayer. The morning air carried the scent of sagebrush and distant rain, though the sky showed no promise of clouds. 8 years. The number rolled through his mind like a prayer he had memorized against his will. 8 years since the phone call. 8 years since he had stood in another cemetery, watching them lower Karen into the ground, her face gaunt from the cancer that had eaten her alive over 18 months of hospitals and false hopes. 8 years since he became a man alone in a house that still smelled like her perfume in the closet, her shampoo in the bathroom, her disappointment in every corner where Daniel's photographs watched him with accusing eyes. But Daniel's death had come 7 years before Karen's. 13 years ago, this very morning, a drunk driver had crossed the center line on Highway 60, turning his son into a statistic, a headline, a closed casket at a funeral where Marcus had stood too drunk to cry. The irony wasn't lost on him. The bottle he'd turned to after Daniel died was the same reason Daniel died in the first place. That night, Daniel had called him, his voice small and scared over the phone. The party had gotten out of hand. Could he come pick him up? But Marcus had been 3 whiskeys deep and climbing, the television blaring some game he couldn't remember now, and he told his son to figure it out. Get his mother to do it. He was tired. 2 hours later, the police had knocked on the door. Karen had been working the night shift at Red Hill Hospital, 12 hours of trauma and blood, trying to save strangers. She hadn't been there to answer Daniel's call, but Marcus had been. Marcus, who had promised when Daniel was born that he would always protect him, always be there when he needed him. Marcus, who had served in the Air Force and survived the Gulf War and carried wounded brothers through desert hell, somehow thinking that made him invincible, untouchable by the soft failures of civilian life. He had been wrong. The driver who had been with Daniel survived. Broken pelvis, shattered femur, 6 months of physical therapy, but alive. Daniel, sitting in the passenger seat, had borne the brunt of the impact. The steering column had crushed his chest. The coroner said he had died instantly, that he hadn't suffered. Marcus wanted to believe that. He needed to believe that. But late at night, when the whiskey stopped working and the ghost came calling, he wondered if Daniel had had time to be afraid. If he had thought about calling him, if his last thought had been disappointment that his father hadn't come. Karen had never said those words directly. She had been too kind for that, too broken by her own grief to add to his. But he saw it in her eyes every day after the funeral. Every time she looked at him, there was a question she never asked, but that hung between them like smoke. Why weren't you sober? Why didn't you go get him? Why couldn't you save our son? He hadn't had an answer then. He didn't have one now. The cancer had taken Karen slowly, cruelly. Breast cancer first, then lungs, then bones. She had fought it with the same quiet determination she brought to everything else in her life, enduring chemo, radiation, and surgeries that carved away pieces of her until there was nothing left but pain, morphine, and a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and dying flowers. Near the end, delirious from fever and medication, she had called for Daniel. Not Marcus. Never Marcus. And when she finally slipped away on a gray Tuesday morning in November, he had felt relief mixed with his grief. Relief that she wouldn't hurt anymore. Relief that he wouldn't have to see that question in her eyes every morning over coffee. Relief in the crushing guilt that came with feeling relieved. After Karen died, he sold the house. Too many ghosts in those walls, too many memories pressed into the carpet and painted over on the ceilings. He bought a small apartment on the edge of town, 2 rooms and a kitchenette, just enough space for a man who didn't want company. The Air Force had taught him to live lean, to carry only what he needed. The Gulf War had taught him that attachment was a luxury that could kill you. So he stripped his life down to the essentials: a bed, a table, a motorcycle in the parking lot below. The photographs of Daniel and Karen went into a box in the closet. Looking at them hurt too much. Not looking at them hurt worse. The Red Hawk Motorcycle Club had saved him, though he wouldn't have used that word. Saved implied rescue, implied someone had pulled him from drowning waters and breathed life back into his lungs. What the club had done was simpler and more necessary. They'd given him a reason to wake up. Robert Steele Harrison had found him at the Veterans Hall 6 months after Karen's funeral, drunk at noon on a Thursday, staring at the names on the Gulf War memorial wall like he was searching for his own. Steele, who had been a transport pilot in the Gulf War, who had flown in the same squadron as Marcus, had sat down next to him without a word. They stayed there in silence for 20 minutes before Steele finally spoke. "We ride on Sundays. You should come." Marcus had gone. Not because he wanted to, not because he thought it would help, but because Steele had asked, and you didn't say no to a man who had saved your life in the desert 40 years ago. Red Hawk wasn't a gang, despite what the town whispered. They were veterans, mostly. Men who had seen things that couldn't be translated into civilian life, who carried wounds that didn't show on x-rays. They rode together on Sundays, long stretches of empty highway, where the engine noise drowned out the thoughts and the wind stripped away everything but the present moment. It was the closest thing to peace Marcus had found since Daniel died. The sun climbed higher, throwing harsh shadows across the cemetery. Marcus's knees ached from kneeling, but he didn't stand. Not yet. This was his ritual, his penance, his way of marking time. Every year on the anniversary of Daniel's death, he came here, brought wildflowers because his son had loved them, hated the stiff formality of roses, sat with him for an hour, and talked to a stone that couldn't answer back. Told him about his week, about the club, about the small kindnesses and cruelties of a world that kept turning without him in it. This year, he had less to say, or maybe he had run out of words. 60 years old, he thought. Daniel would have been 29, old enough to have children of his own. He might have been a grandfather. Karen would have loved that, would have filled their house with toys and laughter and all the noise that came with small children discovering the world. But that was a life that belonged to some other Marcus, some version of himself who had answered the phone sober and driven to that party and brought his son home safe. "I failed you," he thought, not for the first time. The words had become a mantra, a prayer said backward. "I failed you and your mother never forgave me, and I don't know how to forgive myself." The wildflowers lay against the stone, already dying. Everything dies eventually. That was the only promise the universe kept. Marcus's back protested as he finally stood, vertebrae crackling like old wood. His shadow fell long across Daniel's grave, a dark finger pointing west toward the highway, toward the empty miles where he would spend the rest of the day trying to outrun ghosts that ran faster than any motorcycle ever built. He touched the top of the headstone one last time, the granite warm under his palm from the morning sun. Then he turned and walked back toward the parking lot where his 1984 Harley-Davidson lowrider waited, chrome gleaming, engine cold. The bike had been his only indulgence in a life stripped to necessities. He had bought it new when Daniel was 5 and Karen was still alive, and he still believed that good things lasted. 41 years of riding, of maintenance and repair, of putting 200,000 miles on an engine that should have died a decade ago. But he had kept it running through sheer stubborn will, replacing parts one at a time, rebuilding the transmission twice, the carburetor 3 times. It was the only thing he owned longer than his guilt. The ride from the cemetery to the Veterans Hall took 10 minutes through morning traffic. Red Hill had grown since Marcus had first arrived in 19s, fresh out of the Air Force and looking for somewhere quiet to build a life. Back then, it had been a dying mining town, 3,000 people clinging to copper deposits that were playing out. Now it had pushed to 8,000. Retirees and families fleeing California's coast for cheaper housing and slower rhythms. The downtown had been revitalized. Old storefronts converted into coffee shops and art galleries. The kind of places that served $7 lattes and displayed paintings of the desert that somehow cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. But the Veterans Hall remained unchanged, a squat brick building on the edge of town where the revitalization hadn't reached. It was a memorial as much as a meeting place, walls lined with photographs of men in uniform, plaques listing the names of the dead from wars that stretched back to the First World War. Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. The dead accumulated, generation after generation, and the Veterans Hall kept their memory alive with potluck dinners and bingo nights, and quiet mornings when old men gathered to drink bad coffee and remember better days. Marcus's boots echoed on the linoleum as he pushed through the front door. The interior was dim, cool, unchanged since the building had been constructed in 1965. Folding tables lined the walls. A small kitchenette occupied one corner, coffee pot perpetually full, mugs stained brown from decades of use. And on the far wall, taking up 20 feet of space, the memorial. Brass plaques mounted on wood panels, each one listing names. The Gulf War claimed the most space, 75 names from a town of 3,000. Marcus knew most of them, had served with 12, had watched 3 die. He poured coffee into a styrofoam cup, the liquid thick and bitter, then stood before the memorial wall. His eyes found the names without conscious thought. Muscle memory of mourning. Staff Sergeant David Wong, killed in Kuwait. Private First Class Michael Torres, medevaced with both legs gone, dead before the helicopter landed. Staff Sergeant James Jimmy Sullivan, shot through the throat on a mission, bled to death in Steele's arms while Marcus and 2 others returned fire. Phoenix's father, though Phoenix had never known him. The boy had been born 6 months after Davy died, raised by a mother who couldn't look at him without seeing the man she'd lost. These were Marcus's ghosts too, different from Daniel and Karen, but no less present. They didn't haunt him with guilt the way his son did. They haunted him with memory, with the weight of survival when better men had died. Why had he lived? That was the question he'd asked himself 10,000 times in 40 years. Why Marcus Chen, average Air Force guy, mediocre shot, average soldier? Why him and not Jimmy or Michael or David? There was no answer. Randomness and luck, the 2 forces that govern combat more than courage or skill. A bullet went left instead of right. An artillery round fell 10 meters short. You lived. They died. And you carried that forward into whatever years remained, wondering if you'd done enough with the borrowed time. The door opened behind him. He didn't turn. Footsteps crossed the floor, deliberate and measured. The gait of someone whose knees had gone bad but who refused to limp. A presence settled next to him, close enough to be companionable, far enough to respect personal space. The smell of Old Spice and gun oil. Sheriff Tom Bradley, 8 years today, isn't it? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He sipped at the coffee, barely tasting it, his eyes still on the names. 69 years old. Tom, older than Marcus by 9 years, though he wore it better, still worked full-time as county sheriff, still commanded respect from deputies half his age, still showed up at the office every morning at 6 sharp. Vietnam War veteran, though he'd been barely 18 when he'd enlisted, young enough that the Marines had put him through boot camp and shipped him overseas before he fully understood what war meant. He'd come home with a silver star and nightmares that still woke him at 3 in the morning. You remember, Marcus said, it wasn't a question. Tom's reflection appeared in the glass that covered the memorial plaques, his face distorted by the overhead lights. How could I forget? Buried my son the same year, different circumstances, same hole in the chest. They stood in silence, 2 old soldiers before a wall of the dead, veterans of wars separated by a generation, but united by the specific knowledge of what it meant to send young men to die for reasons that seemed less clear with every passing year. Wade's son had been a Marine too, 3rd generation. He'd died in Fallujah, IED, on a road that had been cleared and marked safe 2 hours before. He'd been 23. Wade and his wife had buried him in the same cemetery where Sarah lay. Different section, but same earth. You ever stop feeling like you failed them? Marcus asked. Wade took his time answering. He did that, always measured his words like ammunition he couldn't afford to waste. His hand came up to touch one of the plaques, fingers tracing a name Marcus couldn't see from this angle. No, he said finally, but I learned to carry it better, like a pack that fits right, still heavy, but you adjust your stride. Marcus nodded. That was honest, at least. No false comfort, no platitudes about time healing wounds or God's plan. Just the truth. You learned to carry it or you broke under the weight. He'd been breaking for 13 years. Maybe it was time to learn a different way. You riding today? Wade asked. Always do. Clear my head. Marcus, you can't outrun ghosts, maybe, but I can ride till I'm too tired to see them. Wade's hand dropped from the memorial. He turned to face Marcus directly, his sheriff's uniform crisp despite the early hour, badge polished to a mirror shine. His face carried the lines of 67 years, deep grooves around his eyes and mouth, but his gaze remained sharp. The war hadn't dulled that. Neither had his son's death. He'd learned to carry it better. Be careful out there, Wade said. Willow Highway sees a lot of accidents this time of year. Summer tourists heading home, not paying attention. I'm always careful. That was a lie, but Wade didn't challenge it. He knew about Marcus's Sunday rides, the long hours on empty highway pushing the bike to speeds that would get him arrested if any deputy caught him. But Wade made sure no deputies patrolled Willow Highway on Sunday mornings. Small mercy from an old friend who understood that some men needed to flirt with death to remember they were still alive. Wade placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, brief pressure through the leather jacket. Be careful, he repeated. Then he was gone, footsteps echoing back across the linoleum, doors swinging shut with a pneumatic hiss. Marcus finished his coffee in the empty hall. The names on the wall stared back at him. Bronze letters catching the light. He knew what they'd say if they could speak. Stop wasting the life we didn't get. But knowing and doing were different countries, separated by an ocean of grief that he'd been trying to cross for 13 years. He left the Veterans Hall and climbed back onto his bike. The engine turned over with a deep rumble, familiar as his own heartbeat. He'd be late meeting the others, but they'd understand. They knew where he'd been. They knew what today meant. The Red Hawk Motorcycle Club gathered at Miller's gas station on the western edge of Red Hill, where the town gave way to open desert and Highway 60 stretched toward the horizon like a promise. The gas station had been there since 1958, the original owner long dead, but the current proprietor kept the vintage pumps and faded signage as a tribute to simpler times. 2 pumps, cash only, no computer screens or credit card readers, just gas and oil and a candy counter that still sold Charleston shoes and Red Hots. 5 motorcycles waited in the parking lot when Marcus arrived. 5 men who'd ridden with him through more Sundays than he could count, through seasons and years and the slow accumulation of losses that came with growing old. They stood in a loose circle, morning light glinting off chrome and leather, their faces turning toward him as he pulled in. No words of greeting, just nods, acknowledgement of his presence and his pain and the fact that he'd shown up despite it. That's what brothers did. Steele lit a cigarette, the flame from his Zippo bright in the shade of the gas station overhang. 58 years old, tall and rail-thin, hair gone white but still thick enough to pull into a ponytail. He'd been a medic in the Gulf War, assigned to Marcus's unit at Khe Sanh, and had saved more lives than he'd taken. But the war had changed him the way it changed everyone. The gentle bedside manner he'd learned in medical training had hardened into something more brittle, more sardonic. He smiled less than he used to, laughed mostly at things that weren't funny, but his hands remained steady, and when someone needed help, Steele was always first to arrive. Ready to ride Gunner, the nickname from 40 years ago, from the M60 Marcus, had carried through the jungle, heavy and lethal and somehow comforting in its mechanical simplicity. Marcus killed the engine. Silence settling over the parking lot. Born ready, Doc. Kodiak Jensen stood apart from the others, performing his pre-ride inspection with the methodical precision of a former police officer who'd spent 30 years enforcing traffic codes. 62 years old, built like his nickname suggested, 6'5" and 280 pounds of muscle gone soft around the middle, but still formidable. He'd retired from the Red Hill Police Department 5 years ago, full pension and a commendation from the mayor, but the cop never left him. He noticed things, watched for trouble, kept mental notes of license plates and suspicious behavior even when he wasn't wearing a badge. Your rear tire's down 5 psi, Kodiak said without looking up from his inspection, and you need to adjust your chain tension. The mechanic shattered into individual notes as each rider downshifted. The form resolves into focus as they close the distance. A child, a girl perhaps 10 years old, barefoot and staggering, her face smeared with dirt and tears. Her dress was torn, once yellow but now stained brown with dirt and what might have been blood. She ran toward the highway with a desperate gait, the grace of someone at the end of their endurance. And she was screaming. The sound cut through engine noise and wind, high and terrified and unmistakably human. Marcus felt it in his chest, a spike of adrenaline that brought everything into sharp focus. He hit the brakes, the lowrider's wheels locked up briefly before he released and reapplied pressure, bringing the bike to a controlled stop on the shoulder. Behind him, 5 more bikes slid to a halt, riders dismounting before engines died. The girl reached the pavement and collapsed to her knees 20 feet from where Marcus stood. Her chest heaved with sobs, hair tangled with pine needles and small twigs, bare feet bleeding from running over rough ground. She looked up at them, with eyes gone wild with fear, and Marcus saw Daniel in her face. Not a resemblance, nothing physical, just the expression of a child in mortal terror, a look he'd seen in the Gulf War in villages they'd passed through, on faces too young to understand the violence that had touched them. Marcus was moving before conscious thought caught up. He crossed the distance in 4 strides, muscle memory from 40 years ago kicking in. Assess the threat, secure the civilian, establish perimeter. He dropped to one knee in front of the girl, hands visible. Body language as non-threatening as a 6'2" former airman could make himself. Hey now. His voice came out gravel rough from the ride. You're okay. You're safe now. What happened? The girl's sobs continued, her whole body shaking with the force of them. She tried to speak but couldn't form words, terror and exhaustion rendering her mute. Behind Marcus, his brothers formed a protective semicircle, faces hard, eyes scanning the tree line for whatever had sent a child running into the desert. Steele knelt beside Marcus, medic training asserting itself. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking the girl for injuries. Pulse rapid but strong, breathing labored but clear, cuts and scrapes but nothing arterial. He pulled a first aid kit from his saddlebag, produced a bottle of water. Drink slow, just a little. The girl took the bottle with shaking hands and drank, water dribbling down her chin. Color began to return to her face. Her breathing slowed fractionally. Marcus waited, patient, while Steele worked. Rushing her would only make it worse. Bear's voice carried from behind them, low and urgent. Marcus, we've got tire tracks coming out of the woods. Fresh, and footprints heading back in. Marcus filed that information, cataloged it, but kept his focus on the girl. She'd lowered the water bottle, was looking at him now with eyes that were clearing, fear giving way to desperate hope. Please, she managed finally, don't let him take me back. Who? Marcus asked, though cold certainty was already forming in his gut. My uncle. Her voice broke on the word. He brought me here. He was going to. Going to. She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Marcus understood. Understood with a clarity that bypassed thought and went straight to instinct. To the rage that lived permanently in his chest next to the grief. Rage at a world that let children suffer while good men died young. He'd seen it in the Gulf War, villages destroyed by men on both sides who'd somehow lost sight of what they were fighting for. He'd seen it in Daniel's face in the casket, the waste of potential, of life cut short by someone's carelessness. And now here, on a highway that should have been empty, a child running from something worse than death. What's your name? He asked, forcing his voice to stay gentle despite the fury building behind his teeth. Lily Chen Martinez. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Chen, his last name. A coincidence, there were thousands of Chens, but still the connection felt like something, a thread linking past and present in ways he couldn't yet understand. Okay, Lily, I'm Marcus. These are my friends. We're going to help you. But I need you to tell me what happened. Can you do that? Lily nodded, tears still streaming, but her breathing steadying. My parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. After that, Uncle Raymond, he changed. Started drinking. Started bringing bad men to the house. Men who scared me. Marcus felt steel tense beside him. Behind them, Boxer's voice carried, low and threatening. Where is he now? This morning, Lily continued, Uncle Raymond said we were going for a drive, but he wouldn't look at me. And he drove out here into the woods. Then he stopped and made a phone call. She swallowed hard. I heard him say he had what they wanted, that she was 10 and healthy, and when did they want to pick her up? The silence that followed stretched tight as wire. Marcus heard Bear's breath hiss out between his teeth, heard Jake curse under his breath, felt his own hands curl into fists before he consciously relaxed them. Violence wouldn't help Lily. Control would. When he walked away to finish the call, Lily said, I ran. Just ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew if I stayed, something bad would happen. Something I couldn't come back from. Marcus studied her face, seeing the truth in every line. 10 years old. Same age Daniel had been when Marcus had first taught him to ride a bicycle, running alongside while he wobbled and laughed and finally found his balance. 10 years old and already carrying trauma that would mark her forever unless someone stopped it, unless someone stood between her and the monsters. You did the right thing, he told her, meaning it absolutely. Running was brave. You were brave, and you're safe now. We're not going to let anyone hurt you. Lily's face crumpled with relief, and she leaned forward, arms reaching. Marcus caught her gently, let her bury her face in his shoulder while sobs racked her small frame. Over her head, his eyes met Steele's. The former pilot's expression was stone, but Marcus saw the fury underneath, saw it mirrored in Bear's face, in Wrench's tightened jaw, in the way Boxer's hands flexed and relaxed, fighter's instinct seeking a target. Jake appeared at Marcus's elbow, voice tight. I called 911. Dispatcher said nearest unit is 50 minutes out, and they want us to stay here, not move her. Marcus shook his head. We're not staying here. Whoever this Raymond is, he's in those woods, and he made a call to buyers, plural, meaning more people are coming. Bear crossed to his bike, came back with binoculars, scanned the tree line methodically, section by section. No movement visible, but those tracks are fresh, 10 minutes, maybe 15. And there's a vehicle back in there. I can see tire marks, broken branches. How many people? Can't tell. At least one, maybe more. Marcus made his decision with the clarity that came from combat experience, from knowing that sometimes you couldn't wait for backup or authorization or the proper procedure. Sometimes you acted on the information you had and dealt with consequences later. Lily was in danger, real, immediate, lethal danger. And they were here, now, 6 men with motorcycles and a will to protect someone who couldn't protect herself. We ride, he said. Get distance between her and whoever's coming. Head back toward Red Hills until we meet the deputy. Bear nodded. Makes sense, we're sitting ducks here. Marcus stood, Lily still clinging to him. She weighed nothing, a fragile collection of bones and fear. He looked down at her tear-streaked face. Lily, I need you to ride with me. On my motorcycle. Have you ever ridden one? She shook her head. It's loud and it's fast, but it's safe. I've been riding 41 years without an accident. You're going to sit in front of me and hold on tight. Can you do that? Another nod, this one more certain. Anything, just please don't leave me here. We're not leaving you. That's a promise. Wrench had already retrieved a helmet from his saddlebag, the small one he kept for his niece on the rare occasion she visited. It was too big for Lily, but he adjusted the straps, tightened it until it sat secure if comically oversized on her small head. Steele wrapped her feet in gauze, temporary protection until they could get her to a hospital. Marcus lifted Lily onto the lowrider's seat, positioned her in front of him, her back against his chest. Your job is to hold onto the gas tank right here. Keep your feet on these pegs. And lean with me when we go around curves. Just follow my body, understand? I understand. He mounted behind her, the bike dipping under their combined weight, started the engine. The rumble made Lily flinch, but she didn't let go. Marcus felt her small hands tighten on the tank. Knuckles white through the dirt. The other riders were already mounted, engines running, formation reforming. They dropped their usual staggered pattern in favor of a tight cluster, protective circle around Marcus and Lily. Bear took point, his bulk and cop presence the most intimidating. Steel and Boxer flanked Marcus's position. Jake and Wrench fell back as rear guard. Marcus engaged the clutch, eased into first gear. The bike rolled forward, smooth and controlled. Lily's breathing quickened, but she held position, following his instructions. Good girl, he murmured. Just like that. They accelerated gradually, building speed as they put distance between themselves and the spot where Lily had emerged. 30 miles per hour, 40, 50. Marcus kept it controlled, not wanting to terrify the kid any more than she already was. Behind them, Canyon Highway stretched empty, heat shimmer rising off the pavement. They'd covered maybe a mile when Boxer's voice came through the helmet comm, urgent. Marcus, we've got a vehicle coming up fast from behind, half mile and closing. Marcus checked his mirror. Dust plume visible, vehicle pushing hard. His chest tightened. Coincidence? Or something worse? How fast? 80, maybe 90, and it's not slowing down. Marcus made a calculation in the second he had available. They were still 35 miles from Red Hills, 50 minutes until the deputy arrived, and someone was coming up behind them with serious intent. Running would put Lily at risk if it came to a high-speed chase, but stopping meant confrontation, potential violence, and they had a traumatized child in the middle of it. Formation shift, he commanded. Bear Steel, drop back with me. Everyone else, increase speed and put distance. If this goes bad, you keep riding and don't look back. No one argued. The formation split, Jake and Wrench and Boxer accelerating ahead, their bikes pulling away with increasing speed. Bear and Steel bracketed Marcus, the three of them holding steady at 50 while the vehicle behind continued closing. Marcus could see it clearly now in his mirror. Dark green Ford Ranger, extended cab, pushing 90 easily, driving with purpose, with anger. His combat instincts screamed warning. This wasn't random. This was pursuit. Lily had gone rigid in front of him, her head swiveling to look back. Marcus felt her start to shake. That's him, she said, voice barely audible over the engine noise. That's Uncle Raymond's truck. Marcus's hands tightened on the grips. Okay, that's fine. Just hold on tight and trust me. The truck closed to a quarter mile. Marcus could make out a figure behind the wheel, male, hunched forward, both hands gripping. No passengers visible. One man, desperate and determined. That might be an advantage. Desperation made people stupid, made them take risks they shouldn't. Marcus's mind raced through scenarios. They couldn't outrun a truck on this highway, not with Lily on the bike and no protection. Fighting was possible but risky, endangering the kid. Talking might work if Raymond was rational, but men who tried to sell children rarely were. That left positioning tactics, using the terrain and their numbers. Bear's voice. Instructions? Get ready to block if he tries to pass. We keep him behind us until the deputies arrive. And if he's armed, then we deal with that when it happens. The truck closed to 500 feet, 400. Marcus could see the driver's face now, distorted by speed and mirror reflection, but recognizable as human, as desperate. Raymond Martinez, presumably. Former uncle, current predator. A man who'd broken something fundamental in himself and thought he could trade a child to fix it. 300 feet. The truck's engine roared, transmission downshifting for more power. It swerved into the oncoming lane, trying to pass. Bear reacted instantly, his ultra-classic sliding left, blocking. The truck swerved back, frustrated. Steel moved right, closing that angle. 200 feet. Marcus could feel Lily trembling against him, fear vibrating through her small frame. He wanted to comfort her, wanted to promise everything would be fine, but he'd learned long ago not to make promises he might not keep. Instead, he kept his voice steady, calm, the tone that had kept young airmen from panicking under fire. You're doing great, Lily. Just hold on. We've got you. The truck closed to 100 feet, near enough that Marcus could see Raymond's face clearly. Unshaven, eyes wild, mouth moving in what might have been screaming or crying or both. He looked like a man at the end of something. All options exhausted, desperation curdled into rage. Dangerous, unpredictable. 50 feet. The truck's front bumper filled Marcus's mirror. He calculated speed and distance, planned his response. If Raymond tried to ram them, Marcus would brake hard, let the truck overshoot, then accelerate and create distance. Risky with Lily on the bike, but better than taking a direct hit. 25 feet, Raymond's hand appeared out the driver's window. Not a weapon, just gesturing, pointing, demanding. Trying to communicate something through speed and fear and the gulf between them. 10 feet. Then the truck's brake lights flared red. The distance opened fractionally. Raymond was backing off, falling back to 50 feet, then 100. He'd made his point, let them know he was there, but wasn't committing to violence. Yet. Marcus's tactical mind cataloged this new information. Raymond wanted Lily back, clearly, but he wasn't willing to kill her to get her. That suggested some thread of humanity remained, some line he wouldn't cross. That could be leverage, or it could be temporary restraint that would collapse under enough pressure. The truck maintained position 100 feet back, neither advancing nor retreating. A standoff at 50 miles per hour, predator and prey and the men standing between them. Marcus's options narrowed. They were still 20-plus miles from help. Running hadn't worked. Fighting would be reckless. That left talking, though talking on a highway at speed was nearly impossible. But nearly impossible was different from impossible. He eased off the throttle, slowing incrementally. Barron Steel matched his speed, the formation tightening. The truck behind slowed proportionally, maintaining distance. Marcus brought them down to 40 miles per hour, then 30. Slow enough for conversation if Raymond was willing. The truck stayed back. Marcus brought them down to 20, then 15. Finally, he pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. Boot heels digging into gravel. Barron Steel flanked him, bikes idling, hands visible, but bodies positioned to move fast if needed. The truck stopped 100 feet back, engine running, driver door opening. Raymond Martinez climbed out with the careful movements of someone who'd been driving too fast and too angry and was now crashing from the adrenaline. He was tall, 6 feet maybe, but gaunt, weight loss evident in the way his jeans hung loose on his frame. His face showed the damage of sustained stress, deep lines, sunken eyes, skin with the gray pallor of someone who wasn't eating or sleeping right. His hands shook as he raised them, palms out, universal gesture of peace. Please, his voice carried across the distance, cracking on the single word. Please don't take her any further. Just, please. Marcus didn't move, didn't respond. He felt Lily pressed against his chest, breathing rapidly, her whole body coiled with tension, ready to flee. Barron Steel held position, silent witnesses, letting Marcus handle this. The leader's burden. Raymond took a step forward. Marcus's hand moved fractionally toward the knife sheathed on his belt. Raymond saw it, stopped, raised his hands higher. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I need to explain. Your explanation can wait for the police, Marcus said. They're on their way. You don't understand. Raymond's face crumpled, something desperate breaking through. I didn't have a choice. They were going to kill me. They said if I didn't bring her. He's lying, Lily said, voice small but certain. He called them. He said he had what they wanted. I heard him. Raymond flinched like she'd struck him. Lily, please, you have to understand, I was trying to buy us time. I thought if I went through the motions, if I met with them, I could find a way out. By bringing your niece to a handoff? Bear's voice cut through, cold as steel. That's your definition of protection? She's not my niece by blood, Raymond said, then immediately looked like he regretted the words. I mean, not biologically. Her mother was my sister, but Lily, her father was from her mother's first marriage. After her parents died, Marcus felt rage building in his chest, the kind of cold fury that in the Gulf War had made him dangerous, made him the airman who'd volunteered for rescue missions when others held back. This man, this broken excuse for a guardian, had just given away the truth. Lily was expendable to him because she wasn't blood, as if love required DNA. So that makes it okay? Marcus kept his voice level through force of will. She's not yours biologically, so you can sell her to traffickers? No. Raymond took another step, desperation overriding caution. That's not what I meant. I loved her mother. I've tried to take care of Lily, but after Maria died of cancer, and then I lost my job, and the debts kept piling up. Marcus went cold at the mention of cancer. Karen had died of cancer. Maria had died of cancer. Different women, different times, but the same thief stealing mothers from children. The men I owed money to, Raymond continued, voice breaking, they gave me a choice. Pay what I owed or provide collateral. I thought I could stall them, thought I could find another way, but they kept pressing, kept threatening. This morning they said it was today or they'd kill me. Kill us both. So you chose to save yourself by selling her, Steele said, voice flat with contempt. I was trying to save us both. Raymond's control was cracking, desperation bleeding through. I thought if I brought her here, if I went through with the meeting, I could see who these people were. Get information. Maybe get the police involved. I wasn't actually going to let them take her. I swear I wasn't. He's lying, Lily repeated, and Marcus heard the certainty in her voice. Children knew when adults were lying, especially children who'd been lied to before. Raymond's face showed something complicated, terror and shame mixed together. Lily, I know you're scared. I know this looks bad, but I'm your only family. Where are you going to go if not with me? Anywhere, Lily said, anywhere but with you. The words hung in the air, simple and devastating. Raymond had no answer. He just stood there, hands falling to his sides, a man looking at the consequences of his choices and finding them unbearable. Get back in your truck, Marcus said. Follow us to meet the deputy. Don't make this harder than it has to be. They'll kill me, Raymond said, voice hollow. The people I owe. If they find out I didn't deliver, they'll kill me. Should have thought of that before you made the call, Bear said. Should have called the police. Should have asked for help. Should have done literally anything else. I was scared, Raymond said, and there was truth in his voice, in the way his body sagged with exhaustion. I still am. But you're right, I made the wrong choice. I wanted you to know it wasn't easy. It wasn't something I wanted to do. But you were going to do it anyway, Marcus said. That's what matters. Steele's voice came through the comm, for Marcus's ears only. We need to move. Every minute we stay here is a minute those buyers get closer. Marcus nodded. He was right. They were exposed on the highway, no cover, no tactical advantage. If the buyers arrived before the deputy, things would get complicated fast. And with Lily in the middle, complicated meant dangerous. But as Marcus prepared to give the order to move, something in Raymond's posture changed. The desperation shifted to something else, calculation. And Marcus saw the man's eyes flick to something beyond them, back down the highway they'd come from. Marcus turned his head slightly, not enough to take his eyes off Raymond, but enough to catch movement in his peripheral vision. Another vehicle approaching from behind, fast. Contact rear, Jake's voice came through the comm. White Suburban, 200 yards and closing, speed approximately 75. Marcus's stomach dropped. The buyers had to be. Timing was too perfect, location too specific. They'd been heading to the coordinates Raymond had given them, and now they'd spotted the convoy. Everyone copy? 5 voices confirmed. Jake, wrench, boxer, defensive positions. Bear, Steele, stay with me. The formation shifted. The 3 bikes ahead moved to create a wider barrier. Bear and Steele closed tighter around Marcus, creating a protective shell around Lily. The white Suburban approached fast, doing 80 easily now. Marcus caught a glimpse as it passed. 2 occupants visible in front, possibly more in back. The vehicle didn't slow, didn't stop, just continued past them at high speed. But 100 yards beyond their position, the Suburban's brake lights flared. The vehicle slowed, pulled onto the shoulder, stopped, sat there for 10 seconds, engine idling. Then it began to turn around. They made us, Bear said. They're coming back. Raymond had seen it too. His face went from desperate to terrified. Oh God, they're here. You need to go. You need to get Lily out of here right now. You called them, Marcus said, voice hard. When did you tell them to come? 10 o'clock. I told them 10 o'clock, but it's only 9:45. They're early. Marcus glanced at his watch. 9:47. The buyers had arrived 13 minutes ahead of schedule, eager or suspicious or both. And now they'd seen a confrontation on the highway. One man in a truck, six bikers, obvious tension. They were either going to leave or engage. The Suburban completed its turn and began accelerating back toward them. Not leaving then. Marcus made rapid calculations. Outnumbered if the Suburban had more than two occupants. Unknown number of weapons. Lily exposed on the bike with him. Raymond a wild card. Would he help them or help the traffickers? No good options. Only bad and worse. Formation Alpha, Marcus commanded. The order rippled through his brothers. Alpha meant defensive circle. Protect the civilian. Prepare for hostile contact. Six bikes moved in coordinated precision, forming a ring around Marcus and Lily. Each rider positioned his bike to provide maximum cover, engines facing outward, ready to move. Bear dismounted, moved to a position that gave him clear sight lines. Steele stayed mounted, but shifted his weight, ready to drop and use his bike as cover. The Suburban closed the distance. 50 yards, 25. It pulled up parallel to Raymond's truck, driver's window rolling down. A man leaned out, late 30s, short dark hair, wraparound sunglasses. Not dressed like a tourist, dressed like someone who did this professionally. Raymond, the man called out, voice carrying clearly across the morning air. You want to explain what's happening here? Raymond was shaking now, hands trembling visibly. These guys, they were just passing by. Found Lily on the road. She got scared, ran into the woods. I was trying to explain. She ran. The man's voice went cold. Or you let her run because you were having second thoughts. No, I mean, she just got scared. Kids do that, but it's fine. Everything's fine. I can get her back. Doesn't look fine. A second man emerged from the Suburban's passenger side. Younger, mid-20s, but with the same professional bearing. Invisibly armed, handgun in a hip holster, not even trying to conceal it. Looks like you've got six bikers interfering with our business. Marcus kept his voice steady, projecting calm authority. This isn't your business. This is a child in danger. We've called law enforcement. They're on their way. Best thing you can do is leave. Now. The first man laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Law enforcement? Right. How long until they get here? 30 minutes? 40? A lot can happen in 40 minutes. Bear's voice carried, using his cop training, his 30 years of de-escalation experience. I'm retired Red Hills PD. These men are military veterans. We're not going to let you take this child. Walk away while you still can. The man studied Bear, assessing. Then his eyes moved to Marcus, to Lily pressed against his chest, to the protective ring of bikers. Calculating odds, risks, costs. That child, the man said slowly, represents significant financial investment. Her uncle here owes us $68,000. We gave him an alternative payment method. He accepted. This is a business transaction, legally binding in our world. There's nothing legal about human trafficking, Steele said. Trafficking. The man said the word like it was amusing. Such an ugly word. We prefer to think of it as alternative family placement. There are people willing to pay good money for children, childless couples, lonely men, people who want companionship. We're just facilitators. Marcus felt Lily shaking against him, small tremors running through her body. He wanted to shield her from these words, from the casual evil of men who could speak about selling children like they were discussing livestock. But she needed to hear this, needed to understand what she'd been running from. Last chance, Marcus said. Leave, now, before this gets ugly. The man pulled off his sunglasses, revealing flat gray eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us the girl. Raymond's going to get in his truck and follow us. And you gentlemen are going to ride away and forget this ever happened. Do that and everybody lives. Don't do that. He let the threat hang. Bear's hand moved fractionally toward the .44 Magnum Marcus knew he carried. Steel shifted his weight, ready to move. Jake, Wrench, and Boxer held their positions in the outer ring, engines idling, bodies coiled with readiness. Here's what's actually going to happen, Marcus said, voice carrying the command authority he'd learned in the Air Force 40 years ago. You're going to get back in your Suburban. You're going to drive away. And when the deputies arrive, we're going to tell them everything. Your description, your vehicle, your threats. They'll put out a bolo. You'll be picked up within hours. Or, he paused, you can try to take her by force. But I promise you, that ends with some of you dead and all of you in prison. Your choice. The man studied Marcus for a long moment. Whatever he saw on Marcus's face must have convinced him this wasn't a bluff, because he smiled, thin and cold, and put his sunglasses back on. This isn't over, he said. Raymond knows that. He owes us. One way or another, he pays. I think Raymond's payment plan just changed, Bear said. Prison's going to keep him busy for the next decade or two. The man's smile widened. Prison. Right. You think Raymond's going to prison. That's cute. He looked at Raymond, still standing by his truck, shaking. You tell them anything, Raymond, and we'll find you. In prison, out of prison, doesn't matter. We always find people who talk. Then he climbed back into the Suburban. The younger man got back in the passenger side. The engine revved, and they drove away. Headed east, back the direction they'd come. Accelerating to highway speed within seconds. Gone. The tension that had been wound tight as wires suddenly released. Marcus felt it in his body, the adrenaline crash beginning, hands starting to shake slightly on the handlebars. Around him, his brothers were experiencing the same thing. Boxer rolling his shoulders, Steel cracking his neck, Bear blowing out a long breath. Jesus, Jake said. I thought that was going to get really bad. It still might, Bear said, pulling out his phone. I got the license plate and photos. Deputies are going to want those. Raymond had collapsed against his truck, legs giving out, sliding down to sit on the ground with his back against the driver's door. He looked like a man who'd just seen his future and found it terrifying. Marcus focused on Lily. You okay? She nodded against his chest, but he could feel her still shaking. Are they really gone? For now, but Lily, we need you to be brave a little longer. The police are coming. They're going to want to talk to you. Your uncle is going to be arrested, and you're going to be safe. I promise you that. Where will I go? Marcus glanced at Bear, who'd been through this before, who knew the system. The former cop came closer, knelt down so he was at Lily's eye level. There are people whose job is to take care of kids in situations like yours, Bear said gently. Foster families. Good people who've been trained and checked and who'll keep you safe while the police figure everything out. It might be scary at first. New place, new people, but it's better than what almost happened here. Lily absorbed that, processing. Then she looked at Marcus. Will you visit me? In the foster place? The question hit Marcus harder than the trafficker's threats had. This child, who'd just escaped being sold, who'd run through the desert to save herself, was asking if he, a stranger she'd met 30 minutes ago, would visit her, because she had no one else to ask. Yes, Marcus heard himself say, I'll visit you. If they let me, I'll visit you. Promise? Marcus thought about Daniel, about 13 years of broken promises and failed obligations, about the weight he'd carried for not being there when his son needed him. And here was a chance, not to replace Daniel, that was impossible, but to be there for someone else, to keep a promise. I promise, he said. They waited another 20 minutes before the deputy arrived, an actual county sheriff's patrol car, lights flashing, coming fast down Canyon Highway. The deputy who emerged was young, maybe 30, with the careful wariness of someone who knew rural Arizona could be dangerous in unexpected ways. His name tag read Hanson. Marcus gave him the short version. Found the girl running from the woods. Uncle admitted trying to sell her. Traffickers showed up but left when confronted. Got photos and license plate. Girl needs medical attention and protective custody. Uncle needs arresting. Hansen listened, taking notes, calling for backup and an ambulance and CPS notification. More patrol cars arrived, then an ambulance, then a caseworker in a Honda Civic with baby seats in back. A woman who looked tired but kind, who knelt beside Lily and spoke in gentle tones about safe places and temporary homes and how brave she'd been. Raymond didn't resist when they handcuffed him, just climbed into the back of the patrol car with the dead-eyed look of someone whose future had just collapsed into a single point of inevitability. Prison, trial, conviction, years behind bars. And maybe that was justice, or maybe it was just consequence. Marcus wasn't sure there was a difference. Deputy Hansen came over after securing Raymond. Sheriff Bradley called. Said to bring you and your friends to the station for statements. FBI's going to want to talk to you too. This is bigger than just one girl. If those traffickers have been operating in the area, Bureau will want to shut down the whole network. Marcus nodded, expected. They'd violated protocols, inserted themselves into a federal crime, maybe even compromised an investigation. But Lily was safe. That's what mattered. Lily appeared at the ambulance, caseworker beside her. She'd been checked by paramedics, feet cleaned and bandaged, vitals stable, no serious injuries. But her eyes held something old, something no 10-year-old should carry. Trauma that would mark her for years, maybe forever. She walked directly to Marcus, looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much. Thank you, she said, for stopping, for helping me. You saved yourself by running, Marcus told her, meaning it. We just gave you a ride. She smiled, small and uncertain, but there. You promised you'd visit. I did, and I will. When? Soon as they let me, soon as you're settled somewhere safe. I'll come, I promise. The caseworker gently touched Lily's shoulder. We need to go, sweetie. Get you checked in, find you a place to stay for tonight. Lily nodded but didn't move immediately. She was looking at all 6 bikers now, memorizing faces. Thank you, she said again. All of you, you're like guardian angels. We're not angels, Boxer said, voice rough with emotion. But we'll keep an eye on you. That's a promise. Then Lily was being led away, small hand in the caseworker's larger one, walking toward the Honda Civic. She looked back once, waved. Marcus waved back, feeling something shift in his chest. Not healing, not redemption, but purpose. The convoy to Red Hills Sheriff's Station was official and slow, patrol cars leading, bikers following. Marcus felt the miles pass with a strange sense of disconnection, adrenaline crash making everything feel distant and surreal. They'd started this morning with a ride to outrun grief. They were ending it as part of a criminal investigation and a child's rescue. The station was a modern building on the south side of town, solar panels on the roof, secure parking in back. Sheriff Tom Bradley stood outside when they arrived, arms crossed, face unreadable. He waited while the deputies parked, while the ambulance pulled into the loading zone with Lily, while 6 bikers killed their engines and dismounted. Marcus, Tom said, we need to talk. The interview room was institutional and cold, metal table bolted to the floor, chairs uncomfortable by design. Marcus sat across from Tom, no deputy present, just 2 old soldiers having a conversation that straddled the line between official and personal. You want to tell me what the hell happened? Tom asked. Marcus did, starting with the ride, the girl emerging from the woods, the decision to protect her, the pursuit, the confrontation with Raymond and the traffickers. He left out nothing, kept his voice factual, report style. Tom listened without interrupting, face growing darker as the story progressed. When Marcus finished, silence stretched. Tom leaned back in his chair, the metal creaking under his weight. You know how many laws you broke? Probably a lot. Interference with law enforcement. Reckless endangerment. Could argue kidnapping since you took Lily without guardian consent. Her guardian was trying to sell her. I know, which is why the DA isn't going to press charges. But Marcus, you put yourself and that girl in serious danger. Those traffickers could have opened fire, could have killed all of you. They could have, Marcus agreed, but they didn't, and Lily's safe, that's what matters. Tom's expression softened fractionally. You're not wrong, but you're also not a cop. You can't just insert yourself into situations because you think it's right. Would you have waited? Marcus asked. If it was you on that highway and you saw a 10-year-old running from traffickers, would you have waited 50 minutes for backup? Tom didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his hands, scarred from decades of police work, then back up at Marcus. No, he said finally, I wouldn't have, which is why I'm having this conversation as your friend, not your sheriff. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed Tom's approval, the blessing of someone whose opinion mattered. They sat in silence for a moment, two men who'd buried children and buried friends and somehow kept getting up every morning. The FBI's coming tomorrow, Tom said. Human trafficking's federal. They'll want statements from all of you, and they're going to go hard on Raymond, try to flip him, get information on the network. He say anything yet? Plenty. He's cooperating fully. Says he got into debt with loan sharks. They gave him a choice between paying or providing product. He chose product, thought he could stall long enough to figure a way out. Classic desperation spiral. Marcus thought about Raymond by the truck, hands shaking, face showing the damage of sustained terror. Any part of his story that's true? Most of it, probably. Bank records show he's underwater financially. Phone records show multiple calls to numbers associated with trafficking operations. His sister, Lily's mother, did die 3 years ago. Cancer. He's not lying about that. He's a victim who became a victimizer. Sad but not uncommon. What happens to Lily? CPS is placing her with an emergency foster family tonight. Tomorrow they'll start the process of finding permanent placement. No other relatives, apparently. Mother was an only child, grandparents deceased. Raymond was her only guardian. So she goes into the system. Better than being sold. True, but barely. Marcus knew about the foster system, knew about kids bouncing between homes, never quite belonging anywhere. Jake had lived it, and the scars went deep. Lily would survive, probably. But thriving was different from surviving. Can I see her? Marcus asked, before she leaves. Tom considered. Technically, no, but I'll make it happen. You earn that much. They found Lily in a family room that had been converted into temporary child holding, brighter and less institutional than the rest of the station. She sat on a couch that had seen better days, wrapped in a blanket despite the September heat, speaking quietly with the CPS caseworker. When Marcus entered, her face lit up. Marcus! The caseworker looked up, assessing. You're one of the bikers? Marcus Chen, I'm the one she rode with. Lily says you saved her life. She saved her own life by running. We just got her to safety. The caseworker smiled, tired but genuine. Either way, you did a good thing. Marcus knelt beside the couch, bringing himself to Lily's eye level. How you doing, kid? Better. The doctor said my feet will heal in a few days. And this lady, her name is Mrs. Patterson, says I'm going to stay with a nice family tonight. That's good. You deserve nice. Lily's expression grew serious. Older than her 10 years. Marcus, I need to ask you something. Okay. You really meant it, right? About visiting? You're not just saying that? The question revealed Lily's core fear. Abandonment. Everyone she'd trusted had either died or betrayed her. Why should he be different? Marcus met her eyes. Lily, I'm going to tell you something I learned in the Air Force. When you make a promise to someone, you keep it. No matter what. No excuses. Your word is everything. Like a pinky promise? Better than a pinky promise. Marcus held out his hand, palm up. This is a handshake promise, the kind adults make when they really mean it. Lily studied his hand for a moment, then placed her small hand in his. They shook, formal and solemn. Okay, she said, I believe you. Good, because I'm going to visit as often as they let me. And if you need anything at all, you tell Mrs. Patterson and she'll find a way to reach me. Understand? Lily nodded, tears starting again, but happier tears this time. Can I hug you? Of course you can. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck, clinging tight. Marcus held her gently, this broken child who'd somehow found courage to run towards strangers, and felt something shift in his chest that hadn't moved in 13 years. Not healing, not redemption, but purpose. A reason to stop running and start standing. When Lily finally released him, Mrs. Patterson had tears in her eyes too. "We need to go," she said softly. "But Marcus, I'll make sure you can visit. You have my word on that." Outside the station, as the sun dropped toward the western horizon and cast long shadows across the parking lot, the Redhawks gathered around their bikes. No one spoke immediately. They'd been through enough together that words weren't always necessary. Steele lit a cigarette, smoke curling into the evening air. "Hell of a ride! Hell of a ride," Bear echoed. Marcus looked at his brothers, these men who'd followed him into danger without question, who'd protected a child they didn't know because it was right. 60 and 64 and 57 and 50 and 54 and 50 years old, veterans and ex-cops and mechanics and fighters, broken in their own ways but united in purpose. "Thank you," Marcus said. "All of you." Wrench, who rarely spoke, found words. "We're brothers. That's what brothers do." And that was everything, really. That was the whole truth. Brotherhood meant showing up when it mattered, standing between danger and those who couldn't protect themselves, doing the next right thing even when the cost was high. They rode back through Red Hills as the sun set, formation loose and tired, heading to their separate homes and lives. Marcus rode alone to his apartment, parked the lowrider in its usual spot, climbed the stairs to the second floor. Inside, the apartment was exactly as he'd left it, empty, quiet, haunted by memories. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, Marcus didn't pour a drink, didn't sit in the dark wrestling with ghosts. Instead, he opened the closet and pulled out the ball of photographs, the ones he'd hidden years ago because looking hurt too much. He spread them across the kitchen table. Daniel at 5, gap-toothed and laughing. Daniel at 10, Lily's age, fierce and beautiful. Karen young and healthy before the cancer, holding Daniel at his baptism. Marcus sat with the photos until midnight, letting himself remember not just the loss, but the love, not just the failure, but the years before when he'd gotten it right. And when he finally went to bed, he dreamed not of deserts or hospitals or caskets, but of a little girl running through the woods toward the sound of motorcycles, and the moment he'd chosen to stop. The morning sun painted Red Hills in shades of amber and gold as Marcus pulled his lowrider up to the community center on a Saturday in October. At 63, his knees still protested when he dismounted, but he'd learned to work with the pain rather than against it. Lily waited for him on the steps, now 13 years old, taller, her black hair pulled back in a ponytail. The scars from that day were still there. Marcus saw them sometimes flicker across her eyes when she thought no one was watching, but she'd learned to carry them, as he had learned to carry his. But here's where their story diverged from what anyone expected. "You're late," she said with a half smile that reminded him of Karen. 5 minutes. Bear needed help with the transmission. Always excuses. But she was smiling as she came down the steps. And that's when Marcus saw it. The resemblance he'd never noticed before, hidden in the child's face but now emerging as she moved into adolescence. The shape of her eyes, the way she held herself. Something that made his breath catch. "Lily, I need to ask you something," Marcus said slowly. "Your mother, Maria Chen Martinez. What was her maiden name? Before she married your father?" Lily looked surprised. "Chen, why?" Marcus felt the world tilt. "And your father, your biological father, not Raymond, what was his name?" "David Chen. He died when I was a baby. Mom said he was a good man, a pilot in the Air Force." She studied his face. "Marcus, what's wrong?" The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. David Chen, his younger brother, the one he'd lost touch with after their parents died, after David had moved to Phoenix and Marcus had stayed in Red Hills. David, who'd sent one photo years ago of his new baby daughter before the silence had stretched too long, before pride and stubbornness had kept Marcus from reaching out. The photo he'd thrown away when Daniel died, when everything from his past had become too painful to keep. "Lily," Marcus said, voice shaking, I think I'm your uncle, your actual uncle. David Chen was my brother." Lily's eyes went wide. "What?" Marcus pulled out his wallet, found the one photo he still carried, his Air Force squadron, David standing next to him, younger, proud in his uniform. He showed it to Lily. She stared at it, then at Marcus, then back at the photo. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Uncle Raymond said, he said I had no family, that all my father's family was gone. He lied about that too." Marcus felt 13 years of grief shift, reorganize, transform into something he didn't have a name for yet. He'd saved Lily 3 years ago thinking she was a stranger. But she was family. His niece. His brother's daughter. The child he'd failed to know existed because he'd been too wrapped up in his own pain to maintain the connections that mattered. "We need to run a DNA test," Marcus said, hands shaking. "To be sure. But Lily, if this is true, if you're really David's daughter, then you're not going into the foster system for permanent placement. You're coming home. With me, if you want that." Tears were streaming down Lily's face now. "You mean it? Really? I've kept every promise I've made to you for 3 years. I'm not stopping now." They stood there on the community center steps, uncle and niece finding each other 3 years after a chance encounter on a desert highway. And Marcus understood finally what Tom had tried to tell him. Sometimes you can't outrun your ghosts. Sometimes you have to stop running long enough to see that what looks like chance is really fate, and what feels like ending is really beginning. The DNA test came back 2 weeks later, 99 points probability of first-degree familial relationship. Uncle and niece, family. The adoption process took 6 months, faster than usual because Marcus was blood family, because he'd been consistently present for 3 years, because Lily wanted it as much as he did. On a spring morning in April, Marcus stood in a courtroom and became, officially, Lily's father. Not by birth, but by choice, by promise kept. That evening they sat on the couch in Marcus's apartment, now a 2-bedroom, Lily's room painted purple at her request, filled with books and art supplies and all the things she'd never had before. A home, not just a house. "Marcus," Lily said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why did you stop that day? On the highway? You didn't know I was your niece. You thought I was just some random kid. So why did you stop?" Marcus thought about Daniel, about 13 years of running from ghosts, about the weight of promises broken and the lightness that comes from promises kept, about a girl running through the desert and a man finally ready to stand still. "Because I failed someone once," he said, "someone I loved very much. And I'd been running from that failure for so long that I'd forgotten how to do anything else. But then I saw you running and scared, and something in me just stopped running, started standing. Does that make sense?" Lily nodded slowly. "My therapist says sometimes the best way to heal from something is to help someone else heal from something similar." "Is that what happened?" "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe I just got lucky. Maybe the universe gave me a second chance, and for once in my life I didn't mess it up." "You think Uncle David, my dad, would be proud? That you found me? That you're taking care of me?" Marcus looked at the photo on the shelf. David in his uniform, young and hopeful, before life and tragedy had claimed him. "I think he'd be grateful. And I think he'd forgive me for not being there sooner, for not knowing you existed, for not being the uncle I should have been." "You're the uncle you are now," Lily said. "That's what matters." From the mouths of 13-year-olds, Marcus thought. Wisdom beyond years. That night, after Lily went to bed, Marcus sat alone in the living room and pulled out his journal. He'd been keeping it for 2 years now, documenting the journey from grief to purpose to something that almost felt like peace. He wrote, 3 years ago, I thought I was saving a stranger. Turns out I was saving family, my brother's daughter. The niece I never knew existed because I was too lost in my own pain to maintain connections. Tom was right. You can't outrun ghosts. But maybe you don't have to. Maybe you just have to stop running long enough to see that the ghosts aren't chasing you. They're trying to guide you, trying to show you where you need to be. Daniel's death broke me. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life broken. But Lily's life gave me a reason to put the pieces back together. Not the same way they were before. You can't go back. But in a new configuration. Broken but functional. Scarred but strong. David, if you can hear me somehow, wherever you are, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I let pride and pain keep us apart, but I promise you I'm here for your daughter now. I'll keep her safe. I'll help her grow. I'll be the family you would have wanted her to have. And Daniel, my son, my boy, who I failed that night 13 years ago, I'm still sorry. I'll always be sorry. But I'm also finally understanding what it means to live with regret without being consumed by it, to carry the weight without letting it crush me, to honor your memory by being present for someone else who needs me. 63 years old, most of my life behind me, but whatever time remains, I'm going to use it well. I'm going to be the father Lily deserves, the Uncle David never got to be, the man I wish I'd been 13 years ago. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Show up, keep promises, be present. Let the grief be what it is while making room for something else too. Hope, purpose, family found when you stop looking and start seeing. He closed the journal and looked around the apartment. Lily's backpack by the door, her shoes kicked off by the couch. The mess and noise and life that came with a teenager in the house. It was perfect. Marcus stood and walked to Lily's room, cracked open the door to check on her. She was asleep, peaceful, safe, home. He pulled the door closed quietly and stood in the hallway, feeling the weight of 13 years finally beginning to lift. Not gone, never gone, but lighter, bearable, balanced by the weight of a promise kept, a child saved, a family restored. In the morning, they'd have breakfast together, pancakes because it was Sunday and Sundays meant pancakes. Then Marcus would ride with the Red Hawks, Steel and Bear and Wrench and Boxer and Jake, his brothers who'd been there the day everything changed. And they'd ride through the desert, 6 men who'd learned that sometimes salvation comes in the form of a child running through the trees, in the choice to stop. Always the choice to stop. To stand still long enough to see what you've been running past. To be present when someone needs you. To keep your promises, no matter how hard. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. 6 months after the adoption was finalized, Marcus received a call that would shatter everything he thought he understood. It was a Tuesday afternoon. He was at the hardware store where he worked part-time, helping a customer choose the right grade of sandpaper, when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Chen, this is Special Agent Sarah Reeves, FBI. We need to talk. It's about Lily. Marcus's stomach dropped. Is she okay? Did something happen? She's fine. She's at school. But Mr. Chen, I need you to come to the federal building in Phoenix, today if possible. There's been a development in the trafficking case. Something you need to know. 2 hours later, Marcus sat in a sterile conference room on the 8th floor of the federal building, across from Agent Reeves and her partner, Agent Marcus Webb, the same agents who'd worked Lily's case 3 years ago. Mr. Chen, Reeves began, pulling out a thick file. 3 years ago, you rescued Lily from what we believed was a trafficking situation orchestrated by her uncle, Raymond Martinez. Believed? Marcus caught the past tense. What are you saying? Raymond Martinez was released from federal prison 2 weeks ago, Webb said. He served 3 years of a 10-year sentence and was released early due to new evidence. Evidence that changes everything we thought we knew about that day. Marcus felt cold spreading through his chest. What evidence? Reeves opened the file, pulled out a photograph. It showed Raymond Martinez, but younger, cleaner, standing next to a woman Marcus recognized from the photo Lily kept on her nightstand. Maria Chen Martinez, Lily's mother. Raymond Martinez was not a drug addict or a gambling addict, Reeves said. He was an undercover FBI informant, had been for 8 years. The room tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of the table. What? After Maria died, Webb continued, Raymond was approached by a trafficking ring. They'd been watching him, knew he had financial problems, knew he had a child in his care. They made him an offer, deliver the girl, clear his debts. But Raymond came to us. He'd been working with the Bureau for years on unrelated cases. We saw an opportunity. An opportunity, Marcus repeated, voice hollow. You saw an opportunity. To infiltrate the trafficking network, Reeves said. We'd been trying to crack this particular ring for 5 years. They were sophisticated, careful, impossible to penetrate. But here was Raymond, with a legitimate reason to contact them, with something they wanted. We worked up an operation. Raymond would pretend to go along with the sale. We'd wire him, track the buyers, follow the money, bring down the entire network. Marcus was shaking now. You used a 10-year-old child as bait. We had assets in place, Webb said defensively. Surveillance teams, sniper positions. The moment the exchange happened, we were going to move in. Raymond was never going to let Lily get into that vehicle. She was never in real danger. Never in real danger? Marcus's voice rose. She ran through the desert barefoot. She was terrified. I held her while she shook with fear. That wasn't supposed to happen, Reeves said. Raymond was supposed to keep her calm, keep her in the vehicle. But she overheard his phone call, the one to us, not to the traffickers, and she misunderstood, thought he was really selling her. She panicked and ran before we could stop her. Marcus stared at them, trying to process this. 3 years. 3 years of believing Raymond was a monster. 3 years of Lily believing her uncle had tried to sell her. 3 years built on a lie. Why are you telling me this now? He asked. Because Raymond wants to see Lily, Webb said. He's been asking about her since he got out. He feels guilty about how things went down, about the trauma she experienced. He wants a chance to explain. Absolutely not. Mr. Chen, no. Marcus stood up, chair scraping against linoleum. You people traumatized a child because you wanted to catch criminals. You let her believe for 3 years that her last living relative tried to sell her. And now you want her to what, forgive him? Understand it was all just a misunderstanding? Reeves and Webb exchanged glances. There's more, Reeves said quietly. What more could there possibly be? Raymond Martinez isn't Lily's uncle, Webb said. He's her father. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus sat back down slowly, legs suddenly unable to support him. That's impossible. Lily's father was David Chen, my brother. David Chen was Lily's biological father, Reeves confirmed, but he died when Lily was 6 months old. Plane crash. You knew that part. What you didn't know is that Maria was pregnant again when David died. Pregnant with Raymond's child. Marcus felt the room spinning. What? Maria and Raymond were having an affair, Webb said, pulling out more documents. Started about a year before David died. We don't know if David knew. After he died, Maria gave birth to Raymond's son, a boy named Miguel. Raymond stepped up, married Maria, raised both children as his own. Both children, Marcus repeated numbly. You're saying Lily has a brother? Had, Reeves corrected gently. Miguel died 2 years ago, leukemia. He was 11 years old. That's what pushed Raymond to work with us even more aggressively. After losing Miguel, he couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to Lily. That's why he agreed to the trafficking operation. He thought he was protecting her by helping us shut down the ring. Marcus put his head in his hands. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. Mr. Chen, Reeves has said, we understand this is a lot to process, but Raymond is filing a petition with family court. He wants custody of Lily reinstated. His conviction is being expunged since he was working as an FBI informant. Legally, he has grounds. Marcus's head snapped up. You are not taking her from me. That's not our decision, Webb said. That's up to a judge, but Raymond is her legal guardian. He never actually committed a crime, and he's her father, biologically, through Miguel. Half-father, Marcus corrected coldly, and I'm her uncle, blood family, and I've been her father for the past 3 years. I've raised her, loved her, been there for every nightmare, every therapy session, every moment she needed someone. We know, Reeves has said, and that counts for something. But so does the truth. Lily deserves to know the truth. The truth, Marcus said bitterly, is that your operation traumatized a child. The truth is that Raymond, whether he meant to or not, put her through hell. The truth is that she's finally stable, finally happy, finally healing, and you want to blow that up. We want her to have all the facts, Webb said. What she does with those facts is up to her. But she's 13 now, old enough to understand, old enough to make informed decisions about her own life. Marcus stood again, this time more steadily. I need to talk to my lawyer, and I need to talk to Lily. But I'm telling you right now, if Raymond Martinez thinks he's taken her back, he's got a fight on his hands. Mr. Chen, Reeves called as he reached the door. One more thing. The trafficking ring. We didn't just wound it, we destroyed it. 47 arrests across 3 states. We freed 18 children, shut down 6 safe houses, broke a network that had been operating for over a decade. That operation, the one that traumatized Lily, saved dozens of other children. Marcus turned back. And that's supposed to make it okay? No, Reeves said. But it's supposed to make it complicated. Because nothing about this is simple. Not Raymond's choices, not ours, not even yours now that you know the truth. Marcus drove home in silence, mind racing. How was he going to tell Lily? What would this do to her? She'd finally started sleeping through the night without nightmares. Finally stopped flinching when older men approached her. Finally believed she was safe. And now this. He pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building and sat in his truck for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to say. There were no good options, only bad and worse. When he finally went inside, Lily was home from school, doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up when he entered, and her smile faded instantly. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Marcus, you look terrible." He sat down across from her. "Lily, we need to talk about that day 3 years ago, about your Uncle Raymond." Her face went pale. "Did something happen? Is he out of prison? Is he coming after me?" "He's out," Marcus confirmed, "but not the way you think. Lily, there's something you need to know, something I just found out myself, and it's going to be hard to hear." He told her everything, the FBI operation, Raymond's role as an informant, the misunderstanding that had led to her running, the fact that it had all been a plan to catch the traffickers, not to sell her. Lily listened in silence, face getting paler with each revelation. When Marcus finished, she just sat there, staring at nothing. "Lily," Marcus said gently, "talk to me. What are you thinking?" "I don't believe you," she said finally. "You're lying. Uncle Raymond tried to sell me. I heard him. I heard what he said on the phone." "You heard him talking to the FBI," Marcus said. "Lily, I know this is hard." "No." She stood up, chair falling backward. "You're trying to make me feel bad for hating him. But I heard what I heard. He said I was 10 and healthy, and when did they want to pick me up?" Those were his exact words. "Because he was playing a role," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm. "But he was pretending to be willing to sell you so the FBI could catch the real traffickers. Lily, I know how it sounded. I know what you think you heard. But there were surveillance teams, snipers, a whole operation designed to keep you safe while catching very bad people." "If it was all fake, why didn't he tell me?" Lily demanded. "Why did he let me think he was a monster for 3 years?" "Because he was in prison," Marcus said. "Because the FBI wouldn't let him contact you while the case was ongoing. Because he's a liar." Lily's voice broke. "Everyone's a liar. Uncle Raymond lied. The FBI lied. And now you're—" She stopped, eyes going wide. "Oh my God. You're going to send me back to him, aren't you?" "What? No. You found out he's innocent, and now you're going to give me back. That's why you're telling me all this. You're trying to make me okay with it." "Lily, listen to me." But she was already running, slamming her bedroom door, the lock clicking into place. Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table, head in his hands. He'd handled that badly, worse than badly. He'd been so focused on telling her the truth that he hadn't considered how it would sound. Like he was defending Raymond. Like he was preparing her to lose another home. He knocked on her door 20 minutes later. "Lily, can we talk?" "Go away. I'm not sending you back to Raymond. That's not happening. You're my daughter now, legally. That doesn't change just because we learned the truth about what happened." Silence. "Lily, I made you a promise 3 years ago. I promised I'd keep you safe. I promised I'd be here. And I've kept that promise every single day since. This doesn't change that. Nothing changes that." The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. Lily's face appeared, red and swollen from crying. "Promise. Promise." She'd opened the door fully. "But the FBI said he wants custody. They said he's filing something with court." "Let him file," Marcus said. "I've got a lawyer. We'll fight it. And Lily, you're 13. A judge is going to ask you what you want. Your voice matters. Your choice matters." I want to stay with you, she said immediately. I don't care if Uncle Raymond was trying to help. I don't care if it was all some operation. He scared me. He let me think I was being sold. And I can't just forget that because it turns out he had good reasons. Marcus pulled her into a hug. You don't have to forget anything. You don't have to forgive anything. Your feelings are valid, no matter what the truth is about his intentions. They stood there in the hallway holding each other, while the weight of secrets and lies and complicated truths pressed down on them both. The next day, Raymond Martinez appeared at Marcus's door. Marcus opened it to find a man he barely recognized. The gaunt, desperate figure from 3 years ago was gone. This Raymond was clean-shaven, clear-eyed, 20 pounds heavier. Wearing a button-down shirt and jeans that fit, he looked like a high school teacher or an accountant. Normal, safe, which somehow made it worse. Marcus Chen, Raymond said, I know who you are. Lily's not here. I know, she's at school, I checked. At Marcus's expression, Raymond raised his hands. Not like that. I'm not stalking her. I wanted to talk to you first. Without her here. Marcus considered slamming the door, but something in Raymond's face, genuine regret maybe, or exhaustion, made him hesitate. 5 minutes, he said. That's all you get. They sat in the living room, Marcus in the armchair, Raymond on the edge of the couch. The older man looked around, taking in the space. His eyes stopped on a photo of Lily and Marcus from her 13th birthday party. She looks happy, Raymond said quietly. She is happy. Was happy. Until the FBI showed up and told us the truth. I didn't want them to tell you yet, Raymond said. I wanted to be the one to explain. To talk to Lily myself, but they thought it would be better coming from agents. Thought it would be more credible. How's that working out? Marcus asked coldly. Raymond flinched. Not well, I'm guessing. How did she take it? How do you think? She's 13. She's been in therapy for 3 years processing the trauma of thinking her uncle tried to sell her. And now she finds out it was all a misunderstanding? That the boogeyman wasn't real? That changes nothing about how scared she was. Nothing about what she went through. I know, Raymond said. God, I know. I've had 3 years in prison to think about that day. About how it went wrong, about how I should have told her what was happening. But the FBI said a lot of things, Marcus interrupted. They said you were undercover. They said there were safety measures. They said Lily was never in real danger. But here's what I say. She was running barefoot through the desert, terrified, believing the last family member she had was selling her to traffickers. That's real danger. That's real trauma. And no amount of "it was for a good cause" makes that okay. Raymond's face crumpled. You're right. You're absolutely right. I made a terrible call. I thought I was protecting her by helping take down the network. I thought if we caught them, she'd be safe. All the kids would be safe, but I didn't think about what it would do to her if something went wrong. Didn't think she might overhear, might run, might spend years thinking I betrayed her. So what do you want? Marcus asked. Why are you here? I want to apologize, Raymond said, to her, to you. I want a chance to explain what really happened. And he took a deep breath. I want to be part of her life again. Not necessarily custody. I know she's happy with you. I can see that. But I raised her from the time she was 6 months old until she was 10. I changed her diapers. I taught her to read. I was there for every fever, every nightmare, every first day of school. She's my daughter, Marcus. Not by blood, but by choice. By years of showing up. And I miss her. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Because he understood that. Understood it completely. He'd been Lily's father by choice for 3 years. The idea of losing that connection was unbearable. She doesn't want to see you, Marcus said. But his voice was gentler now. She's angry. She's hurt. She doesn't trust you. I know, but maybe with time, if I could just write to her, let her know I'm thinking about her, let her process everything at her own speed. Marcus studied Raymond's face, searching for deception, for hidden motives. But all he saw was a man who'd lost everything. His wife to cancer, his son to leukemia, his daughter to an operation that went wrong, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. I'll talk to her, Marcus said finally. I'll tell her you came by, that you want to apologize. But Raymond, I need you to understand something. I'm not giving her back. Whatever the courts say, whatever legal claim you might have, I'm fighting for her. She's my daughter now, and I protect what's mine. I don't want to take her from you, Raymond said. I just want a chance to be in her life, even if it's just letters, even if she never forgives me. I need her to know the truth, that I never stopped loving her, that I never wanted to hurt her. He stood to leave but paused at the door. Marcus, thank you for saving her that day, for being there when I couldn't be, for giving her a home and a family and everything she deserves. I mean that. Whatever happens between us, whatever Lily decides, I'm grateful she found you. After Raymond left, Marcus sat in the silence of his apartment, thinking about blood and choice, about family and obligation, about the complicated truth that sometimes the right thing and the wrong thing were the same thing depending on where you stood. That evening when Lily came home from school, Marcus told her about Raymond's visit. She listened with her arms crossed, face closed off. He wants to write to you, Marcus said. He wants to apologize. He wants to explain. I don't want his explanations, Lily said. I don't want his apologies. I want him to leave me alone. That's your choice, Marcus said, and I'll support whatever you decide. But Lily, there's something else you need to know. Something the FBI told me yesterday that I haven't told you yet. He told her about Miguel, about Raymond being Miguel's biological father, about the affair, the marriage, the years Raymond had spent raising her as his own, even though she wasn't his by blood. So he's not even my real uncle, Lily said when he finished. He was just my mom's husband, my half-brother's dad. He was the man who raised you for 9.5 years, Marcus corrected gently. That counts for something. Does it? Lily's voice was sharp. Because my real father, David, your brother, he's dead. And my mom's dead, and Miguel's dead. So my real family is all gone. Everyone I'm actually related to is dead except you. The words hit Marcus like a punch because she was right. Her biological father, her mother, her half-brother, all gone. The only blood family she had left was Marcus, and he'd only been in her life for 3 years. Lily, Marcus said carefully, family isn't just blood. It's, don't, she interrupted. Don't tell me family is who shows up. Don't tell me family is choice. Because if that's true, then Raymond was my family for 9 years, and he still chose to put me in danger. He still chose his FBI operation over my safety. So what does that say about choice? Marcus had no answer for that, because she was right again. If family was choice, then Raymond had made his choice, and it hadn't been her. I'm going to my room, Lily said. I have homework. She left Marcus sitting alone in the living room, surrounded by photos of a family that had been built on secrets and lies and good intentions that had gone horribly wrong. The next 3 weeks were a blur of lawyers and court filings and character witnesses. Raymond petitioned for visitation rights. Marcus fought it. Lily's therapist submitted a statement saying that contact with Raymond could undo years of progress. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation for everyone involved. Marcus found himself sitting in a psychiatrist's office, answering questions about his childhood, his military service, Daniel's death, Karen's death, his drinking, his recovery, his relationship with Lily. Why do you want to keep custody? The psychiatrist asked. Because she's my daughter, Marcus said. Because I love her. Because I made her a promise 3 years ago, and I keep my promises. Even if it means keeping her from someone else who loves her, someone who raised her for most of her life. Raymond had his chance, Marcus said. He made his choices, and those choices traumatized her. I don't care if his intentions were good. Good intentions don't erase trauma. But Mr. Chen, isn't that what you're asking Lily to do? To erase the trauma so she can see Raymond's good intentions? Marcus stared at the psychiatrist. No, I'm not asking her to erase anything. I'm trying to protect her from more trauma. Are you, or are you trying to protect yourself from losing another child? The question hit too close. Marcus stood up. Are we done here? Almost. One more question. If Raymond wasn't fighting for custody, if he just wanted to write letters, to have occasional supervised visits, Would you allow it? Marcus sat back down slowly. I don't know. Why not? Because I'm afraid, Marcus admitted. I'm afraid that if he comes back into her life, she'll remember that he was there first, that he knew her longer, that he has more history with her, and she'll choose him over me. And if she did, if she chose Raymond, then I'd lose her, like I lost Daniel, like I lost Karen, like I lose everyone I love. The psychiatrist made a note. Mr. Chen, has it occurred to you that maybe this isn't about what's best for Lily? Maybe it's about what you need. Marcus didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the truth was sitting in his chest like a stone. He needed Lily. Needed her to heal the wound Daniel's death had left. Needed her to justify the last 13 years of grief and guilt. Needed her to prove that he could keep a promise, could protect someone, could be the father he'd failed to be. And that wasn't fair to her. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. Marcus spent those weeks in a haze of preparation and anxiety. The Red Hawks rallied around him, Steele and Bear offering to testify as character witnesses, Wrench fixing things around the apartment that didn't need fixing, Boxer teaching, Lily self-defense moves just in case, Jake taking her for ice cream and long talks about family and choice and complicated truths. But it was Tom Bradley, the sheriff, who gave Marcus the advice he needed. They were sitting at the VFW hall, same place Marcus had been the morning he found Lily, drinking coffee that was still terrible after all these years. You're going to lose, Tom said bluntly. Marcus's head snapped up. What? Not custody. The judge isn't going to take her away from you, but you're going to lose something else. You're going to lose the simple story, the one where you're the hero who saved the girl from the monster. Because Raymond isn't a monster, he's just a man who made hard choices in an impossible situation. And Lily's going to have to learn to live with that complexity. So what do I do? You let her, Tom said. You let her be angry at Raymond and grateful to him at the same time. You let her miss him and hate him. You let her have all those contradictory feelings without trying to fix them or make sense of them. And you trust that she'll figure it out. And if she decides she wants to be with him, then you let her go, Tom said, because that's what parents do. They raise their kids to make their own choices, even when those choices break their hearts. Marcus thought about that conversation the morning of the court hearing. He dressed in his one good suit, the one he'd bought for Karen's funeral and hadn't worn since. Lily wore a dress Tom's wife had bought for her, dark blue with a white collar, making her look older than 13. They drove to the courthouse in silence. The hearing was held in a small courtroom. Just the judge and the lawyers, and Marcus and Raymond and Lily. No jury, no spectators, just 6 people trying to figure out what was best for a child who'd been through too much. Raymond's lawyer went first, presenting evidence of Raymond's years as Lily's guardian, his clean record before the trafficking case, his work as an FBI informant, the trauma of losing Miguel. He painted a picture of a dedicated father who'd made one terrible mistake in the course of trying to protect his daughter and help law enforcement. Marcus's lawyer countered with evidence of Lily's trauma, her nightmares, her therapy sessions, the progress she'd made in Marcus's care. He argued that disrupting her placement now would cause more harm. That stability was more important than biological connection. Then the judge asked to speak to Lily alone. Marcus waited in the hallway pacing while Lily was in chambers with the judge. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. When the door finally opened, Lily emerged red-eyed but composed. She wouldn't look at Marcus, wouldn't look at Raymond. The judge called everyone back in. I've reviewed all the evidence, Judge Martinez said. And yes, Marcus noticed the irony of the judge sharing Raymond's last name, though they weren't related. And I've spoken with Lily at length about what she wants and needs. This is a complicated case. Both Mr. Chen and Mr. Martinez clearly love this child. Both have valid claims to guardianship. Both have made sacrifices for her well-being. Marcus held his breath. However, the judge continued, Lily is 13 years old enough to have a voice in her own future, and she's made her wishes very clear. The judge looked at Lily. Would you like to tell them yourself? Lily stood up, small in her blue dress, but with steel in her spine. She looked at Raymond first. I don't forgive you, she said, voice shaking but clear. I understand what you were trying to do. I understand you thought you were helping, but you scared me. You made me think the last person I had in the world was going to sell me. And I can't just forget that because it was all part of some plan. Raymond's face crumpled, but he nodded. I understand. But, Lily continued, and Marcus felt his heart stop. I also understand that you raised me, that you loved Miguel and Mom and me, that you lost everyone too. And I think maybe someday I want to hear your stories about Mom, about when she was healthy, about Miguel when he was little, about all the things I was too young to remember. She turned to Marcus. You're my father now, she said. You're my family. You're the one who's been here for 3 years. You're the one who kept your promises. And I want to stay with you. She took a breath. But I think maybe Raymond can write it to me sometimes, if that's okay. And maybe someday when I'm ready, we can talk, really talk, about everything. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. Lily's too. Even Raymond was crying. The judge smiled. I think that sounds like a very mature solution. Primary physical custody remains with Mr. Marcus Chen. Mr. Raymond Martinez is granted permission to write letters, subject to review by Lily's therapist. In-person visitation can be revisited in 6 months, pending Lily's emotional readiness and her explicit consent. The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Raymond approached them one last time. Lily, he said, thank you for being willing to try. I know I don't deserve it. You don't, Lily agreed, but Miguel would want me to. He always said you were a good dad, so I'm going to try to see what he saw someday, when it doesn't hurt so much. Raymond nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He shook Marcus's hand. Take care of her. Always, Marcus promised. They watched Raymond walk away, shoulders hunched, moving like a man who'd lost everything but been granted the smallest hope of redemption. You okay? Marcus asked Lily. No, she said honestly, but I think maybe someday I will be. They went home. That night, Marcus pulled out his journal and wrote, Life is more complicated than I thought it was at 60. I thought I knew the story. Villain and hero, victim and savior, simple lines of good and evil. But Raymond isn't a villain. He's just a broken man who made impossible choices. And I'm not a hero. I'm just another broken man who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Lily's learning to live with contradictions, to be angry and grateful, hurt and healing, moving forward while looking back. And I'm learning that keeping promises doesn't mean keeping people. It means showing up, being present, giving them space to become who they need to be, even when that's scary, even when it might mean losing them. 3 years ago, I stopped my motorcycle for a child running through the desert. I thought I was saving her. But maybe she was saving me, teaching me that family isn't simple, that love isn't clean, that sometimes the right choice and the hard choice are the same thing. And that's enough. Complicated and messy and painful, but enough. We're going to be okay. All of us, even Raymond, maybe, eventually. When the dust settles and the wounds scar over and we learn to carry these truths alongside the lies we believed. Because that's what family does. We carry each other's weight. We forgive the unforgivable. We learn to love not despite the complications, but because of them. That's what it means to keep a promise. To stop running and stand still. To be present for all of it. The pain and the healing, the truth and the lies, the endings and the beginnings. And somehow that's everything.